Now we're going to focus on the urinary system, which is also referred to as the renal system. The urinary system is a purifying system for the blood. It also controls water, so water control, and also nitrogen disposal, such as urea and the breakdown of ammonia. So as you can see in the picture, we have the kidneys, and you can see one is higher than the other. On top of the kidneys, you have the adrenal glands, which we'll learn more about in the endocrine system. Then you have the two ureters, which connect the kidneys to the urinary bladder, and then you have the final urethra. So as we said, the urinary system is also referred to as the renal system. Renal refers to kidneys, so we're incorporating the kidneys, the ureters, which are the tubes that connect the two kidneys to the urinary bladder, and the urethra as part of the urinary system. Now, the urinary system is going to produce, store, and get rid of urine. And we're going to talk about how urine is a waste product. It's not just salt and sugar and water, but it's actually consisting of some harmful products we need to get out of the body and break down. Now, each kidney is about the size of your fist, which is about 4 to 5. Urine is going to travel, as we said, from the kidneys through the ureters to the urinary bladder. Now, the urinary system is going to maintain homeostasis, and we said homeostasis refers to or means a balance. This is a body balance, and specifically, this is going to happen through the removal of urea, which is nitrogenous waste. Now, urea is going to be broken down from ammonia, and this is going to be removed from the bloodstream. The urinary system is also going to try and balance and control water with salt in the bloodstream, as well as it controls blood pressure. And this is very important because if we have too much salt or too much water in the blood, that's going to impact our blood pressure, okay, how much pressure we need to move that blood through. Now, hormones are going to impact that. The first one, renin, increases blood pressure, and erythropoietin, think of the red blood cell, decreases blood pressure. It's going to be also going to stimulate red blood cell production. Then we have osmoregulation, which is referring to osmotic pressure. Think of osmosis. Remember, this is the movement of water through a substance from high to low concentration. So this regulation, trying to balance out and have a minimum amount of pressure to move the body fluids through. So this is the regulation of the minimum amount of pressure needed applied to the solution through the process of osmosis. So urine, again, is formed when blood leaves the bloodstream and goes into the kidneys. And the kidneys will filter that blood, and then it's going to start sending out the waste products, and that's going to be extra water, carbon dioxide, the ammonia, the urea, the uric acid out of the body. Now, ammonia is very, very harmful, and the liver actually breaks that down and then sends it in the bloodstream, and it's then filtered again in the kidneys. And the kidneys, ammonia, as we said, is toxic, highly water soluble. The liver breaks down the ammonia into urea. This then is less toxic and less soluble, and then the kidneys are able to convert that urea into other smaller molecules to be expelled by the urine. Here you can see the structure of urea. And remember, NH3 and NH4 is your ammonia and ammonium. Now, urea is primarily used in fertilizers, so that's not a healthy thing to have in your body. And as you can see, we have the renal vein and artery. Blood is going to enter the kidney through that renal artery, and then we'll talk about the breakdown, where it passes through. And you can see the renal cortex, renal medulla, renal papilla, and pyramids. So the kidney is a reddish-brown bean-shaped organ. It's located against the back of the abdominal wall. The right kidney is slightly lower than the left. And as we said, on top of each kidney is an adrenal gland, which secretes hormones of adrenaline. The kidneys are covered with a fat capsule. So again, we have two kidneys. We're going to start with the kidney, then connecting the kidney. Each kidney is one tube, so we have a total of two tubes. So one tube from one kidney, one tube from the other kidney, coming together to the center urinary bladder. So there's one urinary bladder, and then there's going to be one P tube, which is called the urethra. And the urinary bladder will hold and expand to hold that urine, and then when it's time to urinate, it's going to go out of the urethra. So the structure of the kidney is broken down by the outer portion, which is the renal cortex, which filters the blood. Then you have the middle portion of the kidney, which is the renal medulla. Medulla, think middle. And this transports the urine to the renal pelvis, which is the inner portion. Inside the renal medulla, you have the renal pyramids, which are 8 to 10 of these triangular regions of tissue in the medulla, and they appear striated or lined. The tip of each pyramid is called the renal papilla. Think of papilla as an elevation or elongation. And then urine flows into the collecting ducts, which empty through the renal papilla into the renal pelvis. So the renal pelvis is the inner portion, and that's going to be the connecting tube, and that's going to divide the major and minor cup-shaped structures that encloses the tips of the pyramid. And these actually collect and funnel the urine towards the renal pelvis. And the functional unit of the kidney is called the nephron. So as we can see, you can see the capsule, you can see the renal cortex, renal medulla, and then you can see the pyramids. And remember, we said the renal medulla is the middle. So on the right-hand side, the cortex is the outside structure. Then as we go more inside, we have the renal medulla. But the most inner portion is the renal pelvis. And as you can see listed, these are the main ones you need to know. The renal cortex is on the outside, renal medulla is in the middle, and then renal pelvis is towards the center. And you can see that in the diagram. And then we're going to talk about what the nephrons are. This is a nephron. So basically, this is a tubule system that starts with a capsule. And so the center portion with all the little capillaries are called the glomerulus. The area that surrounds the glomerulus, all those capillaries, that's going to be the Bowman's capsule. So that covering is the Bowman's capsule. Sometimes they're identified interchangeably because the Bowman's capsule consists of the capillaries, which are the glomerulus. Then you have the proximal tubule, which is closer to the Bowman's capsule. And then you have the loop of Henle, which drops down. And then you have the distal tubule. So let's go a little deeper here, and we'll review this. So on the right side, you can see the Bowman's capsule. You can see the capillaries, the glomerulus at the center of that. And then as we step out a little more in the middle, and on the left-hand side, you can see the proximal tubule, then that loop of Henle, which drops down, and then you have the distal tubule. Now the kidney consists of over 1 million nephrons, and as we said, these are the functional units. These are the ones that are actually doing the formation of urine. These are the ones that are actually going to be doing the filtering and the absorption and then the excretion. And as we already talked, and we were able to identify the knot of capillaries consisting of the glomerulus and the Bowman's capsule covering. Then you have the renal tubule, which are the closed cup-shaped structures at the end. And the renal tubules give rise to the proximal convoluted tubule, the distal convoluted tubule, and we'll talk about some of the other structures that are abbreviated here. Here's the Bowman's capsule, and this is where you actually have the blood entering, being filtered. So it's made primarily of capillaries. So blood pressure is used to push the plasma into the Bowman's capsule, and this capsule, and you can see a microscopic view of the Bowman's capsules. And then as you can see here, we have the Bowman's capsule, we have the capillaries inside the glomerulus, and then you have the proximal tubule. At this point here, you're going to have the blood vessels, the plasma is being pushed through. It's then going to be filtered, so salts, vitamins, different toxins are going to be moved out of the tubule through active transport, and then water follows those nutrients through osmosis. Remember, osmosis is the movement of water. So they're going to move out of the tubule, being reabsorbed. And then you have the loop of Henle, which drops down. Water is being taken out through osmosis. And basically, the tissue around the loop of Henle is very salty from the active transport. And because of the salty conditions, water is going to be able to diffuse out of the loop, coming out. And as you can see that going down, the water is being taken out. And then as it starts going up, salt is being taken out, but urea is being taken in so it can be disposed of. So the active transport is used to move the nutrients out of the concentrated urine. You have some toxins and different ions, such as potassium, hydrogen, ammonia, are being pumped into the tubule. So water is being taken out, which is good, and then all the bad stuff is being taken into the tubule so it can be filtered. More water leaves, and remember it's leaving because of osmosis. Some urea will leave, but primarily we're going to be taking in salts during this time and carrying a lot of the urea. So you can see an overall view of this. You have the Bowman's capsule, salt and nutrients leave, water is going to leave, lots of water is going to leave the descending part of the loop of Henle, and then as it rises up, some salts are going to leave. Then you have the distal tube, which it's going to be taking in a lot of toxins and ions, such as ammonia and drugs, and then that are in the bloodstream. And then in the collecting duct, we have a lot of water being taken out. So we have filtration in this process. Water and solutes, smaller than the proteins, are forced through the capillary walls of the Bowman's capsule. Reabsorption, water, sugar, amino acids, and ions are transported out of the filtrate into the capillary cells and then into the blood. Secretion, hydrogen ions, potassium ions, drugs, different toxins are removed from the capillaries, from the blood, and then secreted into the cells for filtration. So we want all those bad things out of the blood, put into the tubules so that we can excrete them out through the urine. A lot of animals may even urinate just crystals of urea or uric acid. Well, our brain is triggered by dehydration, so water loss. So receptors are going to detect a low amount of water in the blood. This is triggered by the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland. Now, the posterior pituitary gland are going to release ADH hormones into the bloodstream. This triggers the nephron, and this increases the permeability of the distal tubule and collecting duct. This then will allow the collecting duct to reabsorb more water, okay, into the blood. Water is then retained in the body and concentrated urine is produced. So if it's going to be higher salts, it's going to be darker. If it's going to be more water, it's going to be lighter.